friends, glad to have you here for another episode. I'm Elliot, and thanks for joining me for another true crime deep dive. First off, I would like to know, guys, how you're doing. Let me know if you're all doing well. I'm so sorry for the quality of the audio, but it's literally raining outside, so I hope that you'll be able to hear me. Anyway, the case we are about to cover is one of those cases they have more questions than answers. We'll be diving into the case of Judy Smith, a 50-year-old woman who vanished into thin air, and then the tragedy unfolded. This is the chilling mystery of Judy Smith. It all started with a springtime vacation, a business trip to Philadelphia, but unfortunately, no one could know this would be the last one Judy Smith will ever make. Judy and her husband Jeff left Massachusetts and went to the Boston's Logan Airport for their 1:30 p.m. flight to Philadelphia, but Judy failed to bring her driver's license, and of course, the airline regulations prohibited her from boarding the flight in absence of a photo ID. So she agreed with her husband that he had to go ahead and she would come home, take her driver's license, and book another plane. At first, her husband wasn't on board, but then he agreed. Jeff attended a business conference in Philadelphia. Judy had decided to come with him to relax and explore the area. At 10 p.m., Judy arrived at the DoubleTree Hotel, apologizing to her husband for the delay, and everything seemed fine. The following day at 9 a.m., Judy made dinner plans with her husband and set out to go sightseeing with her red backpack, and she vanished. By Jeff's account, she wasn't either angry or upset. She was truly enjoying her vacation, and she seemed in good spirits. Judy was an outgoing and thoughtful woman, so he wasn't concerned at all. The business convention ended on April the 19th, after which the couple planned to visit some friends in New Jersey. When Jeff headed back to the hotel they were staying in at 5:30 p.m. and didn't find her, he was concerned though. They had a cocktail party scheduled at 6 p.m., but Judy was nowhere to be found, and Jeff was worried. So, a little after, he contacted local hospitals to see if there was a chance she would be in one of them. By midnight, he tried to report her missing. He told the police that Judy planned to see two historic landmarks, Liberty Bell and Independence Hall. The issue here is that the police told Jeff he had to wait 24 hours prior to reporting his wife missing. How frustrating, right? Jeffrey noticed that only one of Judy's outfits was missing, and it was the same she had traveled in the day before. The family explained that it wasn't unusual for Judy to wear the same outfit for more than one day. He got into a taxi, drove and rode through the city, trying to trace the path of the tour bus she was supposed to have taken, but there was no trace of her whatsoever. No clues. All her personal belongings, including her purse, her ID, and credit card, were all left behind. She didn't even take her prescription medication with her. Judy took off with approximately $200 in cash. Jeff called his stepchildren and asked them to check the house because maybe she had gone home. Also, he asked them to check the answering machines, but neither messages nor notes were found. Jeff returned to Boston without Judy. He created 9,000 flyers to fax and mail to law enforcement departments about Judy's disappearance from Maine to Florida. That's an insane amount of flyers, right? He was determined to know what happened to Judy. There had been no answers for months. No one knew where Judy was, and all her family and friends were concerned. For 5 long months, Philadelphia had been the last place she had been seen. Why would a woman with no history of mental health issues vanish without warning anyone? Very suspicious to say the least. Bear in mind that in the 1990s, Philadelphia had a high rate of crimes in specific areas of the city. 3 private investigators were also hired to help find her. 5 months into Judy's disappearance, 2 people were hiking near Asheville, in North Carolina, at Pisgah National Forest, in a remote mountainside, and stumbled across something horrific. Human remains in a shallow grave. First, a partially buried skeleton, then the other remains, which had been scattered by the animals. The skeleton still had hiking boots, blue jeans, and her underwear. I want to specify that the area where her body was found was not in a place where tourists would normally visit, so it was more a secluded location. The remains were sent to the medical examiner's laboratory in North Carolina, and it was revealed that the bones belonged to a white female between her 40s and mid-50s, which matched Judy's age because at the time of her disappearance she was 50. But one specific detail stood out to investigators. Judy had been dealing with a chronic arthritis in the left knee, and it was reported in the testing. Anyway, the medical examiner didn't list the cause of death. The family was in utter shock, especially Judy's daughter, Amy. She couldn't believe it. She was just devastated. The saddest part is that this is still a case which haunts her family. To this day, we still have very few answers. The pathology report listed that there were puncture wounds and cuts on the bra, which may suggest she had been stabbed. Her death was officially classified as a homicide. A doctor in North Carolina saw an article about the discovery of the bones in a newspaper, and since he had seen one of the flyers Jeff had passed along the area, he called law enforcement. Dental records were provided, and it was confirmed the body belonged to Judy. She ended up being found 700 miles, or 1,000 kilometers, from where she vanished in Philadelphia. How did she get there? Let's take a step back. Who was Judy Smith? She was born on December the 15th, 1936 in Massachusetts, and one aspect that captured my attention is that, even from a young age, she stood out for her kindness. She had been married twice, and each of the marriages ended in divorce. Her first marriage ended when her former husband ran away to Sweden to avoid being drafted away in the Vietnam War. Judy had 2 kids, Craig and Amy, and they were born during the second marriage, filling her life with joy. She met Jeff while at work. Jeff was a son's patient she was tending to at home. Jeff's father was recovering from surgery to remove a tumor. It was a good match, but the two didn't immediately tie the knot. Having lived together for 10 long years, the big day arrived for them in September 1996. A few months later, she went missing. According to friends and family, Judy was a rather assertive and independent person. She was an active person who enjoyed walking, hiking, and sightseeing. Many would also describe her as kind-hearted and considerate, but not naive. At the moment of her vanishing, she was 50. Maybe someone would call that a midlife crisis, a new stage of her life. But apparently, she loved her life. She was launching herself into new horizons, making plans for the future. There is zero explanation as to why a woman could have gone this far. I mean, in such a secluded area. No one could come up with an answer. Why was Judy Smith killed? Did she know this person? Did she trust the wrong person? Those people close to Judy were adamant. In no way would she drift apart without warning her family. It's possible she might have helped someone. On the whole, she was a nurse. She had this spontaneous side of herself. She was a very kind-hearted woman, and maybe she might have run into trouble. An important detail here is that there were at least 4 eyewitnesses in Nashville who reported to have seen her days after she went missing. Focusing on one of them, a retail clerk, Joanne Stacker, she reported that Judy was coherent and pleasant. In no way was she acting weird. According to this woman, Judy told her that she, along with her husband, was from Boston, and her husband, an attorney, was attending a conference, so she decided to go sightseeing in Philadelphia. Employees at a motel in Biltmore Village also believed Judy had been staying there in Nashville. It's weird because she had no reason to stay in Nashville, in North Carolina. Jeff told the police that they didn't know anyone there and he had no idea why she would have traveled that far. There have been at least 12 unconfirmed sightings of Judy in the days after her disappearance. She was allegedly spotted in locations several hundred miles apart, like in Easton, Philadelphia, then in New Jersey, and finally Nashville, not too far from where her body was found. Some people reported seeing a woman acting disoriented, as if she wasn't in her best mental state, while others said she seemed calm and coherent. In particular, an homeless woman in the Penn Landing area was very similar to Judy. An homeless man, David, explained he had slept on a bench in a park next to Judy and said that the woman wasn't Judy. She was just another homeless woman. Next, some people reported to have seen her in New Jersey and that she seemed disoriented. One of the most famous reports was from an employee at Society Hill Hotel who said that a woman akin to Judy had stayed in that hotel from April the 13th to the 15th. During her stay, the woman would act strangely, like touching herself in front of the window and speaking in tongues. She wasn't in the best mental state and was noticed by many employees, even by the manager. The woman didn't have enough money to pay for a further night at the hotel and explained to them that the emperor would have helped her. Even a salesperson and customer at Macy's department store in Deptford, New Jersey, reported to have seen a woman resembling Judy's appearance on April the 11th. By their account, she was shopping for her daughter, complaining about the fact her daughter would often dislike what she bought her. And this seems to ring true to Judy's family. Judy would shop at Macy's at times. What a spooky coincidence, also because they remember this woman had a red backpack, like Judy. In addition to that, Judy asked the younger woman, thinking she was her daughter, to leave the store with her. One report says that Judy asked another customer in the same store about menopause. I don't know you guys, but the specific sighting seems to be accurate. Plus, there are some similarities with Judy. It's possible that was her, acting disoriented. I tried to ask myself why she would be acting weird. If that's the case, did she suffer from amnesia, like her family thought? Amnesia could be one theory, making Judy confused to the point where she wouldn't be able to identify herself anymore. According to the family, this may explain why she traveled to Pisgah National Forest, allegedly on her own free will. There was no indication that Judy had ever had any mental health concerns, though. Another possible explanation to that could be menopause. At the time of her disappearance, she was 50, possibly already experiencing menopause. I do know this might seem weird at first, but the lowering of estrogens, in particular estradiol, may contribute to a host of nagging symptoms like brain fog, confusion, and even mental disorders to some extent. But I don't know. Did she suffer a stroke? Was she suffering from early signs of dementia or Alzheimer's disease? A final theory is that the body found at the Pisgah National Forest didn't belong to Judy, but to me this doesn't make sense at all because she was matched via dental records, the engagement ring, and even her knee with arthritis. If the body didn't belong to Judy, who was it? And again, where did Judy end up? There was a friend of Judy named Caroline who believed that her marriage was showing signs of suffering and maybe something back in Boston led her to make a decision to take a pause. She believes it was unlike Judy to have forgotten her driver's license when boarding at the airport. It seems like she wanted some space and this would be the perfect excuse. In other words, this move had to be planned. I don't know what to think of it at this point. According to the family, though, Judy had a good relationship with Jeff. She was happy at that stage of her life. He denied any issues. Well, Jeff passed away a few years later in 2005 due to cancer, so we won't ever be able to hear his latest version. Judy's family stayed in Philadelphia for weeks looking for her, putting up posters in hopes to find her and to spread awareness, but unfortunately, they had to return home with nothing on their hands. From my understanding, I get that Jeff was trying to protect himself from investigators. In fact, when a woman disappears, like in this case scenario, most of the time the focus mounts on the husband, who becomes the prime suspect. So yeah, maybe he was trying to portray a good picture by saying there were no issues in their marriage at all. It's understandable, but even Judy's daughter, Amy, said there was anything off between them. Jeff was investigated as a suspect, but his alibi was checked out. He was not a person of interest. One weird thing is that Jeff refused to take a lie detector test, and I tried to reflect upon the reasoning for that, but then I realized he was also a lawyer, so chances are he was suspicious of the police. He may have thought they must have been wasting their time looking at him. Jeff criticized how law enforcement had handled the case, and he said he would take a polygraph, provided that the FBI administered it, and the Philadelphia PD requested the FBI to assist in Judy's case. This was seen as a refusal by law enforcement because Jeff, as an attorney, should have known that the FBI wouldn't get involved in this case. Also, keep in mind that he was obese, so it would have been impossible for him to walk up to the trail in the woods where Judy's body was found. To be honest, I don't feel like he had to be responsible. I mean, he put a ton of effort into Judy's search. He was just a concerned husband on the lookout for answers. On the other hand, though, the fact that Judy disappeared, maybe having planned all this or maybe not, might indicate to me that she was fed up and just took off, but then something unexpected happened to her. Sheriff Medford believes that Judy came to a point where she might have been fed up with her marriage, but she was also planning on starting a new chapter in her life. But she may have encountered someone and ended up dead. This theory, though, doesn't seem to ring true to the family. Anyway, One important detail to remember here is that when she vanished, Judy had a red backpack, which she would always carry with her. And guess what? This item was not present where her body was found in Nashville. Plus, a blue backpack was recovered, and according to investigators, it might belong to the suspect. It was filled with winter clothing and $80 in cash. Another item which was found on scene was a pair of expensive sunglasses, and again, chances are it belonged to the person responsible for Judy's murder. Judy's diamond ring, worth $150, was found. So, if this was a robbery gone wrong, why would someone leave such a valuable item, right? Lieutenant Sam Constance said that investigators had ruled out robbery as a motive. Another relevant detail is the way she was found. She had been wrapped in a blue blanket and placed in a shallow grave, but scavengers had scattered her bones in several directions. Detectives classified the case as a homicide, based on punctures and slashes to her bra. It's important to remember that at the Pisgah National Forest, where Judy's body was found, 2 years prior, the body of another woman was found. She was tied to a tree in the woods, just a few miles from Judy's. That woman had been sexually assaulted and then murdered. Over the years, there's been a theory which floated. Maybe Judy may have crossed paths with a serial killer named Gary Michael Hilton, who was later arrested and convicted of serial killings on hiking trails in national forests in the Appalachian Mountains in 2008, including the case of Meredith Emerson, and investigators tried to follow this lead, but it turned out nothing concrete. He hasn't been linked to the killing of Judy Smith. He was sentenced in Florida for other murders. Still, there are some similarities between Judy's murder and Hilton's victims. For instance, the target of Gary Michael Hilton's victims will be people hiking in national forests, like in Judy's case. This killer's motive was allegedly robbery. In fact, he would take credit cards from the victims, and if you remember, Judy's credit cards and ID were missing. On the other hand, though, Hilton would decapitate his victims, while Judy was not. As said earlier, it's just speculation. He hasn't been tied to her murder. Moving forward, the 2 original investigators on Judy's case were fired from Buncombe County Sheriff's Office due to the unlawful actions of one of them. More specifically, one of them died in May 2020, while the other one works for another agency. Unfortunately, Judy's case isn't present on any list or website about North Carolina's school cases, plus no one is currently assigned to her case. Such a sad and puzzling case to cover. I don't really know what to think of it, guys. What are your opinions? Let me know. To me, there had been a whopping amount of sightings of Judy, spotted in several states, leading up to where her remains were found. And my personal thought is that she took off on her free will. Probably some kind of amnesia must have played an important role in this case. Why was she killed, and by who? Still is up for debate though. There's one thing we do know for sure. Judy Smith deserved more. That's the end of the video. Thanks for watching and see you in another episode, guys.